everybody, and welcome to this special spoiler review episode from the
Geek
Buddies. Hey! We're back at it to continue our spoiler reviews of The Mandalorian Season 3, and today we're talking about Chapter 19, The Foundling, or Chapter 20, rather, The Foundling. This one directed by Carl Weathers. That's right, Apollo Creed. Greef Karga, for those of you who know the characters in The Mandalorian. I hope you do if you're watching this spoiler review. We're going to break it all down. A lot happened in this one. Little Bo-Katan smelling leadership yet again, and we get a little Grogu flashback to Jedi Order 66, and we get the return of an actor closing the circle yet again from the prequel trilogy, the great Ahmed Best. So we got a lot to get into here on this episode of the Geek Buddies, but let's introduce ourselves. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where you can see some of our current work on Netflix right now with Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City, seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, a lot of fun to jump into that as well. I'm waiting for the Mandalorian Strawberry Shortcake episode. Come on, you got to do a Mando, Barry. There's got to be one like that. Come on.
The Mandalorian.
Oh. He's quick.
God.
You know what? He's quick. That's the thing that I like about it. He's quick. You know,
He is quick.
Almost like
He
he's
is
been on
quick.
stage.
No accounting for quality, but speed is right there.
Jesus. All right. Anyway, let's jump into this thing. Chapter 20, The Foundling. As I mentioned, a lot happened here. I'd like to start out with the overall thoughts. So, Michael, please take it away. Certainly, we weren't dealing with the doctor and dealing with Aaliyah there, but we did get Monument Square. So, what did you think of this episode?
We took a break. We took a break from fixing the new trilogy and just focused on the Mandalorian story. So that was fun. I was very. So I always, like, before I go to the gym in the morning on Wednesday, I just check to see like how long the Mandalorian episode is, and when it's like above 45 minutes, getting into the 50 minutes, I get really happy. But when I see 32 minutes, I get really kind of like grumpy. I'm like, this is it. Yeah. I was like, once you factor in those credits, like, this is barely a 30-minute episode. I was like, they better pack this thing full of good shit if they're gonna make me happy. And then, you know what? They made me happy.
Yeah.
We got a lot of Mandalorianing all over the place. We got some monsters. We got a big Order 66 flashback. We got listen, I'm gonna tell you right now, we've all had a lot of conversations about who saved Grogu. People thought Mace Windu saved Grogu. People thought Barriss Offee saved Grogu. People thought Qui-Gon Jinn's ghost came out of Holocron and saved Grogu. Like, people had everyone on the list. Nobody had Jar Jar Binks. Nobody had Jar Jar Binks in their Star Wars bingo card, and that was quite a surprise. So yeah, I liked it. I have a lot of thoughts about Bo-Katan, but just like a fun, enjoyable, rip-roaring Star Wars adventure episode.
Yeah. All right, Shannon, your thoughts overall on these 32 minutes here of Mandalorian goodness from season 3?
I liked it. There, in terms of content, like, it was very enjoyable and it was exciting, and I think Carl Weathers did a really good job in terms of the direction. But thus far into the series, it's sort of like the further we get away from episode 1, I'm like, why'd you do that episode? Like, why didn't you just start with episode 2? I mean, like, the information that we got in Book of Boba Fett from the Armorer was he's got to go to the Mines of Mandalore.
Right.
In episode 1, he shows up and he says, well, I got to go to the Mines of Mandalore. The Armorer, the one who told him he has to go there, is like, well, that's impossible. It's like, okay, you know, I'm struggling with the show a little bit because I've never quite gotten over the fact that they reunited Grogu and Mando in Book of Boba Fett. Mm-hmm. It's like, why, you know, you had this terrific Mandalorian episode in a show that had nothing connected to your lead, but you had this great Mandalorian episode that would have been an incredible season premiere. Like, and you know, the way that it was sort of set up by the end, at least with the Book of Boba Fett, is season 3. It's going to be about Mando getting to these mines, and like by episode 2, he's done it. Like, he's accomplished that goal. Like, in terms of action, I feel like this season we've gotten some of the best. I mean, in episode 3, that chase with Bo-Katan at the beginning, like, that was just fantastic. It just it felt so Star Wars. But right now, even though what we got in this episode was fun, and it seems a little bit more about Bo-Katan, which is cool. It's a little like, what are we doing? Like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of forward momentum right now. And when you don't have a ton of episodes in your season, it's like I feel like we're treading water. It's really great water. It's very warm and relaxing and fun, but it's just like we're not going forward. Okay. So even though I did enjoy it, I think my patience with everything is starting to decrease a little bit.
All right.
That's fair. I think that's fair, actually.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good episode, but yeah, I agree. I was missing the more weightier aspects of The Mandalorian that I wanted to see, but I still enjoyed the episode for what it was, especially because the last episode, I'm still kind of on the fence about whether I liked it or didn't like it. There were aspects that I liked, but what this episode really showed me is, yeah, you're right, Shannon. It's like the Mandalorian's kind of receding a little bit to the background as Bo-Katan's story starts to be something that's important. And I wonder how that's going to connect up. If we're going to get Ahsoka in this season, how is that going to connect up to Bo? What is going to be the conversation there? And then what we're going to get with Grogu. Is Grogu going to become a Mandalorian? That seems really odd in the approach. What is the process here? Is this just one of his life experiences along with Order 66 that's going to shape who he eventually becomes down the road? So a lot of questions in my mind, but yes, Carl Weathers, I mean, this is 2 episodes now, 2 seasons in a row where he has directed some fantastic action. He knows exactly, I mean, Action Jackson knows what's up, man. He knows what he's doing with the camera. He knows how to bring you into some fun moments. And I think for sure, overall, this is someone they should be looking at down the road to direct more episodes of Star Wars, even in the series that he's not actually in as a character. It could be fun to see Carl Weathers approach the things down the road. So let's get into it, though. We'll break it down by 2 storylines. We'll jump into the Yoda story, or the Grogu storyline, then jump into the Bo-Katan storyline and have our conversations about that. So let's deal with baby Grogu here. We see after the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan go on this war party thing, Grogu is there with the armor on the beach. And the armor is like, if you want to be a Mandalorian, if you want to be a real foundling, we got to have a conversation. Of course, this is also on the heels of baby Grogu beating Paz Vizsla's son, Ragnar, there in a little war over darts. Gets the best of him using his flip abilities, which, of course, we've seen Yoda use in the past. And Bo-Katan asked Din Djarin if he taught him that. And he says, well, I didn't teach him that, essentially implying either Luke or Ahsoka taught Grogu how to move around like that. So very interesting stuff that kind of alludes to what Shannon was talking about, the episodes that were in the book of Boba Fett. But anyway, we go into where the armor is. She starts talking about the iron ore, and it's the foundation, and starts pounding away to say that this is how you get forged through your trials and tribulations. And it sends him into a PTSD flashback. And Grogu looks really stressed as these hammer blows are coming down on the armor that's being built for him. And he ends up going back to what is the prequel trilogy here at Order 66, seeing the Jedi fighting off these clone troopers back and forth here. This is all going down. The Jedi are getting killed. Then they say, get him to, was it Kelleran? Get him to Belleron. And they're like, what the hell is that? And he gets on an elevator, gets taken all the way to the top of this thing. Kelleran Beq gets all the way to the top of this thing, and boom, the elevator opens, and there is Kelleran Beq, Ahmed Best. And what a surprise there. The actor who played Jar Jar Binks, and of course received an incredible amount of guff for that, and so much so that he contemplated suicide. There are a lot of articles that talked about what he went through, and the fandom, as they got older from the prequel trilogy, really sought to embrace Ahmed Best, and that's what kind of really brought him back to center here. And of course, he's been part of that kids show that they had. That's where Kelleran Beq was first introduced. So we see him there bringing Grogu out onto this platform, and these troopers show up, and my man goes double lightsabers on these guys, fights them off, gets into that speeder bike or that cycle there. They take off and they land on a platform. These troopers follow them down. They end up jumping into a ship, taking off, going into space, and Grogu comes back from his flashback there with the armorer, and she puts on that a piece of armor there for him that's made of Beskar armor, talking about tradition of these Mandalorians taking a piece of their winnings and giving it to the foundlings here. And that's what they've got. And that's what Grogu is wearing. And she attaches it to the armor that Din Djarin had given him in the Book of Boba Fett, and so now he has this piece by piece, another piece of armor here for him. And she's essentially saying, for when you achieve your station, this is another thing for you to have on your armor. So very interesting stuff here. Mike, what did you think about how this all went down with Grogu, with Order 66, Kelleran Beq, and what happens at the end there with him getting the armor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all interesting. Kind of going back to what Shannon says, because I think Shannon makes a good point. Like, we are kind of dealing with, for both Din Djarin and Grogu, there's no immediate issue.
Yeah.
Which is what we all sort of gravitate to Bo-Katan because we know what Bo-Katan wants. Din Djarin, he went in the water. He's good. He's chilling back at home with the Mandalorians. He's back with the crew. And Grogu isn't really in danger at the moment. And I do think they made a huge error by having the biggest character development between the two of them happen in another series, because I think Grogu is a Mandalorian now. I mean, he made a choice. Luke was like, hey, you can be a Jedi,
right? Or
you can go be with your Mando friend. And Grogu was like, cool, this has been fun. Thank you for teaching me to jump. I'm going to go hang with my Mando friend. So yeah, like Grogu is kind of going down the Tar Vizsla? That's the first one, right? That was the Jedi.
Yes.
Well, no, Paz Vizsla is
John Favreau
in the show.
Right. Who are you talking about?
The original Mandalorian Jedi who made the Darksaber.
Yeah.
That's the road that Grogu's going down. Grogu is kind of he's got Jedi abilities and he's a Mandalorian. So I think they're building towards that. And I think it's all fun. And I think using this episode to kind of take a little bit of a step back and kind of give us the next chapter of Grogu's story, which is escaping the Jedi Temple, was really fun. Kelleran Beq, like I said, total surprise.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was just sweet. Like this is one of those weird things where Kelleran Beq, within the context of the Jedi Order and Order 66 in the prequels, doesn't really mean anything one way or the other. You're like, okay, he's a Jedi. He was there. He saved Grogu. Yeah. But the fact that they kind of went out of their way to give Ahmed Best this role and to kind of say the guy who played Jar Jar gets to be the one that saves Grogu, it's just nice. It's just nice. This is one of those moments where it's a nice kind of fan servicey moment, but it's like a fan servicey moment that is like a warm, fuzzy fan servicey moment. So I was like, I'll take it. I thought Carl Weathers did do a great job with this episode. The one place where I think he didn't do the greatest job was the double lightsaber attack on the platform before they took off on Coruscant. I was like, it was fine. Like if you're gonna have Ahmed Best and you're gonna like have him let have his moment, like let's have some Jedi action there. Let's really like go for it. And I was kind of like, okay, it was fine. It was a nice like wide shot. He had two lightsabers. He did some stuff. They jumped on the thing. But once they jumped into the speeder and kind of took off, really a lot of fun. I mean, they clearly were like, hey, we spent a lot of money to make Coruscant look like it did in the prequels. Let's use it in as many episodes as possible. Yeah, but we got like a really, really fun chase sequence that, just like last week, if you are a prequels fan, if you're a Clone Wars fan, like it was all the goodness. And then we got this chapter. So we got, Kelleran Beq got him to the ship. Whoever's ship this was clearly like expecting more Jedi.
Yeah.
Grogu's all they got. And they took off. So what senator is this? Where are they going? Like Grogu, there's a lot of time to cover. It's not like Grogu left Coruscant to get away and Mando picked him up pretty soon after. Like, you got the entire original trilogy to deal with. Like this is Revenge of the Sith. There is the entirety to get to New Hope, and then there's New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then Mando picks Grogu up. So there's still a lot more of his story to tell, and his journey of where he's been for the past, what is that? 18, 19, 20, like 20 odd years.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they expand that. As far as everything else, him getting the Beskar, him coming, like, it's interesting. Like, I think they've kind of, in my opinion, and this kind of gets to what Shannon's saying about the patience, like, Grogu's great. We all love Grogu. But Grogu being adorable and eating animals and kind of being cute and giving everybody looks has kind of gotten, they've taken that story about as far as it can go.
Yeah.
And now that he's no longer the MacGuffin that needs to be protected or the thing that the Empire is after, or like, like, I think they made really good use of him in episode 2 when he left to go get Bo-Katan, but I think we need to see Grogu become a little bit more active. So I really loved all the flashback stuff. I really like how they're giving us like these little bits of that. I am intrigued about the idea of him stepping up to become a Mandalorian. I think long term, you get to like, you know, post new trilogy, and we get a Grogu that's sort of a teenage Grogu that's running around in his little Mandalorian helmet and also has a lightsaber. Like, I'm sold. Like, I'm in. Like, give it to me. What we do between then and there, I'm kind of curious to see what they've got planned.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure he ends up a Mandalorian, even though he is now a foundling Mandalorian in essence. I just don't know necessarily if he's going to be a Mandalorian, but it'll be interesting to see. But certainly, I mean, I would love to get some armor from the armor. That was an awesome design on his rondelle there. That was pretty cool to see. Shannon, your thoughts on how they handled Grogu in this episode, from the fight with Ragnar there with the darts to the PTSD, the flashbacks, and then boom, back here to get his piece of armor, his Beskar armor there.
I think with the action specifically, when they are able to just kind of put everything in the computer when it comes to like chases and everything, it's really good. Like you can see that they do have a little bit more cash and they're able to flex those muscles a little bit more. I think when you add the live action elements, you do start to see the constraints of what they can do, what this particular production can do. Watching Grogu flip back and forth, that's a lot of fun. Could it have been a little more dynamic instead of flip, flip, boom, boom, boom? Yes. But also this is a very tiny child. And just the conversation that Ragnar was having, that the referee was having, like, he's too little. Like, nah, he's gonna be fine. You know, there was room, if money were not an option, to really kind of blow that out.
Yeah.
But money is it's a thing. And like, there's only kind of so much you can do in terms of, you know, the character moment of Grogu, you know, taking Ragnar to school. You know, that was a lot of fun. And you do get an idea of, because of his species slow aging, the forecast of what they're going to be able to do with Grogu, as Vogel was saying. Like, you get to the sequel trilogy and he looks more like a teenager. You know, you're going to have this cross between, you know, Boba Fett from the Clone Wars and Yoda. Like, there's a long future for this character.
Yeah. For sure.
When we get to that flashback sequence, again, like, I wouldn't put everything on Carl Weathers, just because, you know, there's only so much he can do. But I do agree, the moment that Ahmed Best picked up those two lightsabers, like, all right, here we go. And again, it's a very kind of static shot. I mean, the moment that he runs out onto that platform with Grogu, and again, this is the limitations of the volume. It is just kind of a static shot. Like, obviously you don't want a bunch of people running around because they're literally running from the clone troopers, but it just looks kind of flat and still. The moment that they get on that speeder bike and go into the city and you see all the traffic, that's where the action, that's where the excitement really gets ratcheted up. Because even though, like, it's awesome to see Ahmed Best, you know, dual wielding lightsabers, Ahmed Best is not a young man, and you also don't have all this you know, huge lead up to the production. Like, we're going to teach you to do all this. Like, well, we're going to teach you about this much because that's what we know. This is the time we have, and we're going to make you look awesome doing it. The actual chase I thought was fun. I'm really curious who those guys were, because to my knowledge, this is the first time we've seen clone troopers in Order 66 take out someone who's not a Jedi. That, you know, you see those guys who are on that platform firing back. And again, as far as I know, I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like, we knew the Jedi were the targets, and not that they're going to sit there and just be shot at and not respond. But it's like, you see how far they were willing to go in Order 66. Like, it doesn't matter who's in front of us. We're getting that Jedi. I really liked and granted, it's kind of a one-sided dialogue, but I really liked the Armorer and Grogu. I mean, watching this sort of senior Mandalorian try to impart some wisdom on this, you know, very small child. I think that's kind of rich, fertile land to develop in terms of storytelling. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Again, everything that we got was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the chase sequence I thought was really fun. Certainly seeing him, dive in. It reminded me of, I think, when they chased the person who tried to do the assassination. I think
And
in
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones. Yeah, like that was really cool to see that again. And like I said, they spent that money to make it look that way. So, and certainly they've been stressing it, which has been really interesting in this show and seeing what we got there. And so, see him go around and then seeing Monument Square pop up again years before. Then we saw it in the last episode with that mountain peak there. I thought was really a nice touchstone. Him escaping that train.
Spent that money. You want to use it?
Yeah, I know exactly that train thing and everything that happened there. So I thought and it was great to bring Ahmed Best back. And as again, like they brought Hayden Christensen back, who had also taken a lot of shit for his Anakin from a majority of the fans when those prequel trilogy. Those films came out, and look, for a lot of us deservedly, and for some of you not deservedly. So it's a split thing. So to see that, but the Ahmed Best situation was really something that this is a young black actor who had an opportunity to be in a Star Wars film and jumped at it, playing a character that was going to be supposedly a regular and a much bigger part of the overall story, and then because of the backlash from the first movie, saw his role get diminished. Plus, he was getting so much shit, even within his own community, about some of the usage of the rhythm of the speech and being called all kinds of negative comments there and being accused of all kinds of stuff. So certainly it sent him down a tough wormhole for sure. So to see him climb back out and see how the Star Wars fandom has re-embraced him and wanted him to be, in a better position, to see him coming in as Kelleran Beq, who of course I think was started 3 or 4 years ago in that kids show. To see him now be the guy that saves Grogu, at least in this situation in Order 66, it was a great way to kind of bring him back and put him back in people's good perceptions of him overall. And I thought that was really cool to see. The armor stuff, though, it's interesting. You're right, Shannon. She has good conversations with him. It's really cool. Emily Swallow is doing a fantastic job, but we don't know what the armorer's goals are or intentions are. If she's a cult leader, as we've said, then this whole indoctrinating indoctrinating Grogu into the Mandalorian way, the Mandalorian credo, talking about, we're going to teach you, we're going to give you gifts and make you feel important. That's how cult leaders bring new people in. You're unique. You're different somehow. Here's a symbol of your difference and your amazingness. Once you're in, I'm going to move on to other people. But for right now, you're really important. So I don't know what her into. So there's one way to look at it. This really awesome conversations, and she seems so cool. But there's another side, if you're looking at it, that she might be a cult leader, that she is indoctrinating him into the cult in a way, and he's going to figure that out. And we'll have more to say. Yeah, go ahead. I'll have more to say about it with the Bo-Katan situation later.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll get to it there, but I mean, I think it's, and we kind of touched on this after the bow and armor's conversation from before, but
yeah,
I don't know that the armorer is wrong, and I don't know that they're a cult.
And that's what I'm saying.
We've had, early on, it was like very like, okay, well, like obviously Mandalorians don't take their helmets off and whatever, but the armorer does not seem to be being set up to be wrong, and all of these Mandalorians don't seem to be doing anything that would lead me to it's taken a turn where you're like, all right, well, maybe this is cool. Like, I don't know. Like somebody on Twitter was pointing out that this is a lot more like Judaism. And it's like Reform Judaism versus Orthodox Judaism. Like what the armorer and all of those Mandalorians are doing is like they are just adhering hardcore to the old ways.
Right.
And even when we were first introduced to Death Watch in the Clone Wars animated series, which is where this group sort of seems to be stemming from, they were like, we don't like what Duchess Satine is doing. We're holding on to the old ways. We're warriors. We wear our armor. We do this. So what the armorer and this whole group is doing is just kind of going a bit further. They're like, we are obeying every rule. We are in on the prophecy. We give to the foundlings. We do this. We always wear our helmets. We have very specific rules in the same way that an Orthodox Jew is always wearing like a yarmulke or something. And then you get to like Bo-Katan and the others who are like a little bit more like, yeah, that's like the old ways. Like that's what we used to believe, but we're a little bit more modern. We're a little bit more reform. And so just the way everything seems to be going, Whereas before, I thought it was going to be like kind of the armorer and her like, this is what we believe, and Bo-Katan being like, that's not right. Like, this is what Mandalorians really are. It seems to be going in the other way. So it's really interesting.
Well, in your perspective, in my perspective, I don't. In my perspective, I see them showing how much more adamant they are about their, well, for lack of a better term, as you put it in the construct, religious beliefs about how you should be a Mandalorian, who is legitimately a Mandalorian and who isn't, who follows the way and who doesn't. And we know with those Orthodox, no matter what religion you are, judgment comes with that Orthodox from a lot of the people within that Orthodox segment to people who aren't following the rules. So they could be perceived. And that's what I'm saying. There's two perspectives here. Either she's right in this, you were meant to have sympathy for this Mandalorian covert and go with them, or she's being nice and being cool and you're supposed to like them so that when the switch happens, you're even more jarred by it. So we'll see, certainly. And I like that it's wide open. That's kind of cool. Jen,
but also, if you don't mind my jumping in, John,
please.
the only ones who have called Mando's group a cult were Bo-Katan, and her people. Yeah. Like in turn, you know, that's not a point of view that's been shared widely. So, you know, you look at where you start with Bo-Katan, that she looks at this group of Mandalorians who don't take their helmets off, you know, in front of everyone, and you see her starting to learn. I mean, the Judaism example, that's really apt. I mean, it's like you see her starting to learn the other side of this culture. I mean, I feel like at this point, like if they were to have the armorer and the rest of the covert make that villainous turn, it would feel, with what they've set up, it would feel really inauthentic. It seems like this is about Bo-Katan discovering her Mandalorian roots, because everything that the armorer has done, it doesn't seem, at least from season one, it doesn't seem villainous. Like, it's like, hey, this is how we do it. You broke the one rule. You can't do this unless you go do this thing. You did it. Okay, you're back in. And it wasn't like a self-serving thing for the covert. It was like, you got to go take a bath in these waters.
You can't do that bath because I say that the waters are corrupt and you can't go. So you fucked.
Well, no, she didn't say they were corrupt. She said the planet is cursed.
She said the planet is cursed. No. Bo-Katan said the planet is cursed. She said the waters you can't get to the waters. They're poisonous. Right. It's not good for you. You're not going to be able to do it. Sorry, you're out.
But Shannon, but I think what Shannon's saying, and I think it could go any way. Like, you're not wrong. Like,
I don't
it could
think
turn on a dime.
Though. That's where I push back. I think it would be authentic.
Well, I think Shannon's right about that. Like, there's aside from Bo-Katan calling them a cult and us thinking it's weird that Mandalorians don't take their helmets off, nothing that the covert has done since season one has been bad. Like, there's not been a thing like we thought. It's weird. Like, it's not like they have some very specific rules that seem a little odd, but nothing that they've done has been self-serving or villainous or even in a gray area. Like, they've been protecting their own and in hiding, and they have some weird rules like that. Like so this whole idea that we've been like, I've been doing it too.
They've bashed Bo-Katan's family. I mean, Armor did that in that episode in the Book of Boba Fett. She talked about how their arrogance led to the split and the division, and why all the wars happened on Mandalore. If they had just followed her ways, they'd have been fine and they would never have had an issue. So there have been little moments, and certainly
to the armor, but again, that's just
and Din have their fight and doing nothing about it. That's not necessarily the best way to go about that kind of situation. So
but like, that's their culture. Like, he challenged Din and they fought. And as far as the Bo-Katan stuff, like, Duchess Satine went, we're going to be pacifists. Right. And Bo-Katan said, I'm going to go join Death Watch.
Right.
They did sort of split the culture. And then when Bo-Katan got the Darksaber and said, I'm going to unite Mandalore, it didn't work. Right. That is why Bo-Katan is where she's at and kind of on her journey. So when the armorer says Bo-Katan and her family and their arrogance split Mandalore, again, that's not an incorrect statement.
No, but she's implying that her way, that wouldn't have happened. And I think that's an incorrect statement itself, because no rigid way of running things has ever worked, because every species, no matter where they're from, has a rebellious nature to being told what to do at every second of every day and being ostracized for simply taking off your helmet, which we'll get to in the Bo-Katan storyline. But, let's jump in. So I like, we all have different opinions on this. I think the turn can still happen. And that's what good cult leaders do, make you think, hey, they seem all right. They don't seem to be bothering anybody, you know? I'm sure nobody gave a shit about Manson until they started killing people. All right, anyway, let's take a break, and we'll jump into the Bo-Katan storyline right after this. I mean, seriously. You know, they're just a bunch of hippies on a ranch. They're not hurting anybody. And then they kill Sharon Tate. So anyway, well, according to Tarantino, they did. But anyway, let's move on to this thing. We open on the Mandalorian clan training, and no surprise, they're doing a bunch of Rocky training on the beach. Carl Weathers directing this episode. Bo-Katan is watching it all. We see blasters, hand-to-hand combat. We see the weapons of fire, the jetpacks, all of this. And this looks like an army in training. In my point of view, I know you think they're doing nothing wrong, Michael, but in my point of view, I'm seeing an army in training ready to take over something. Bo-Katan spies Grogu training himself in the sands with the crabs and the rocks, which is really interesting. Kind of small comment about perspective, what may look like something to you is something else underneath. I like that, underneath the surface. Mando says that he needs to train with other foundlings, and then he lines up Grogu to challenge, as we mentioned here. That happens. Bo-Katan arms Grogu with the darts and says, "Don't worry, that's how my dad trained me. Your dad's just being in support of you." And we see what happens there. I mentioned it earlier. Where as the kid walks off here, as Ragnar walks off, mad that he lost, a pterodactyl comes out of nowhere, takes him, and the Mandalorians follow with their jetpacks one by one. They run out of fuel, and just when they're about to give up, who comes storming overhead but Bo-Katan in her ship. And that shot of it, I said, against the sun is pretty badass, I thought. So Bo ends up coming back and says she has found the nest of the creature. They come up with a plan with Bo-Katan, Mando, Paz Vizsla, and the armorer there, figuring it all out. They take off. And then we see, of course, the armorer take Grogu into the cave. Then we get to they eventually end up here on this kind of flat area below the peak that they have to climb up to the nest. They spend the night there. And they get food, and Bo-Katan asks Din, wait, how do we eat? Did you take off your helmet to eat? He goes, yes, but we have to go to quiet areas where no one can see us, and then we're allowed to take off our helmets. And when she starts to get up after everyone's has left, Paz says to her, no, you are the leader of the war party. You get to sit here and take off your helmet and eat by the fire. And we see her take off her helmet, and KATEE SACKHOFF is just kind of by herself, alone, maybe contemplating things and this whole situation and thinking about it more. We go to the next morning. They come up with a plan. They start climbing up the peak. Paz jumps into the nest when he shouldn't jump into the nest because he wants to save his kid. And we find out there's actually three little mini baby pterodactyls there. And then they fight them off. And then the mom pterodactyl shows up, takes the kid, takes off. The Mandalorians with Bo-Katan pursue this creature, and then the creature is eventually, they save Ragnar, and then the creature is eventually eaten by the same thing that disturbed their ritual in the first episode for Ragnar. So interesting stuff that goes full circle. Bo-Katan, and they all end up back at the cave there with the armor. The armor invites Bo-Katan in. She sees that she's missing a piece from her shoulder or armor, and she strokes her shoulder, just like a cult leader might do, feeling the contact, and so starts talking about the armor and building something for her. She says Bo says she wants half Night Owl, half Mythosaur, and then Bo says, so, like, what if I happen to have seen a Mythosaur? And Armor's like, yeah, you're going to see some visions if you're part of this covert. That's kind of how it is. No, but what if I really saw one? Like, what if I saw one? And the Armor is just like, yeah, no big deal. This is how it's going to happen when you're part of this thing, and kind of blows it off. So very interesting stuff to see her surrendering the information of the Mythosaur to the Armor, but hasn't told Din about it yet, but tells this person about this deep secret of hers, like a cult leader would do, get the deep secret out of you. So very interesting stuff here. Shannon McClung, please, take it away. Listen, I have my opinions on it. Please, Shannon, your opinion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're building a cult coral reef off of Hayward Island.
I was gonna say I can't see you, Johnny, for all the straws that you're grasping at right now.
What do you think of this? How they handled Bo, man?
So the whole big thing, like,
one last thing, and they got the foundlings, and they took the 3 foundlings off the ship. I forgot to mention that. The 3 little pterodactyl foundlings. I don't know what they're going to do with those, but yes,
fly them
or cook them.
They're going to ride those things. But I do feel like this is where maybe they are dropping the ball a little bit in the writing, because you see them training on the beach. You see blaster fire hitting the water, where not long ago, a giant croc tortoise came out and killed a bunch of them. It's like, maybe don't shoot the water. And then the whole training sequence, like, I didn't get the sense that this is an army training. I get the sense that they're training the next generation of Mandalorians, because the way that they survive is by doing these bounties. Like, that's how they're able to sustain themselves as a culture at this point. The moment that the raptor flies out and grabs Ragnar, and like, I did like that they addressed the fact that their jetpacks can only hold so much fuel.
Right.
Like this is what happens. They always get away, and it's like, okay, I get that you all are on this planet because maybe this is the only place that people aren't looking for you. This is where you feel safe. I do feel like that maybe needs to be articulated.
How many times did this happen? Paz says it's happened multiple times. Like, why aren't you having better safeguards for this situation?
It's time to find another cave.
If this is what is happening on the reg, you either need to tell Den, like Den says, hey, why are we here? They're like, this is the only place we're safe. This is the only only place where people aren't looking for us. I do agree that shot of Bo-Katan's ship going after, like, again, really great cold open.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what this was, a gigantic cold open. But that shot of the ship going into the sunset, cut to the Mandalorian title card, like, that's a great, like, all right, here we go. Watching the discussion of, like, okay, this is what we have to do. Yeah. My wife had actually said a couple of times, like, if they don't take their helmets off, how do they eat? So I like that was actually addressed. Yeah, it's like, this is how eating works in our culture, is you go off by yourself. And then the whole thing with Paz, because I think at the time we didn't know that Ragnar. Did we know that Ragnar was his son at that point, or it wasn't until the nest? So Paz telling Bo, and like, we don't know Paz Vizsla that well, but what we do know is he throws his weight around. Like, he's not lacking for confidence. And to see him be the one to deliver that message to Bo, like, no, you're the war party leader. You get to stay by the fire. Like, again, that was a nice connection moment. I don't know. Maybe he's just warming her up to the cult as well. Possibly.
But he was also the one that fought Din for the Darksaber, wanted to take it off him, and thought he didn't deserve it. So
yeah, because his ancestor is the one who made the Darksaber, and his other ancestor is the one who started Death Watch.
Just because my dad made something to mean I deserve it, it's a little
arrogant. But it's justifiable that you could think so.
It is. Especially if you conditioned to think that way. Sure, I agree. Yeah.
So they get to the nest. I do like that the revelation that Ragnar is his son, and you see, like, when he can kind of see the finish line, you see he sort of abandons all tactics, like, nope, that's my kid, I'm going. The reveal of the three baby raptors, like, yeah, that was fun. The whole chase, a lot of fun. I did think it was funny when the adult raptor upchucked Ragnar. That it's like, oh, okay, apparently the digestive system of a raptor isn't quite as debilitating as like a sarlacc, because that kid was dry as a bone. The whole them taking the raptor down, again, that was just great action. Really, really fun stuff. And the moment that the raptor goes into the water, and it's like, maybe there was only one crocodile. Nope, there's two. So all of the action, all that stuff was super fun. But I do feel like there are some things in the writing that, for the audience by and large, would be helpful if they articulated. But the whole thing with, like, the mythosaur, like, the armor didn't really answer. She just said, this is the way. She didn't really say, like, I mean, I think that's kind of her go-to. Yeah. It's like, no, what if I saw one in real life? And she's like, this is the way. Like, that's kind of, how in Princess Bride, as you wish, as I love you, I think the armor's this is the way is, I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Okay. All right. Michael, your thoughts on all of this and what we got here with Bo-Katan as she Do you feel? Let me ask you, because I know we're battling about the cult stuff, but like,
Are we?
Yeah. The other stuff is, where you felt at the end, and please talk about everything, but did you feel at the end, and address this when you get to it, like that this is her moving closer to seeing that she could use this situation to put herself back in power on Mandalore? So
I don't know that it is. And, you know, I really like KATEE SACKHOFF and I really like Bo-Katan. So I could be looking at this through a rosy Mandalorian helmet and not seeing exactly what's going on. But I don't know that I do. Like, it's interesting. I thought that this season was going to be, Armorer versus Bo-Katan with poor Din Djarin stuck in the middle.
Yeah,
is where I kind of thought it was going, and it doesn't seem to be going there, and that's totally fine. Right. So I'll talk about that in a second. I'll talk about Bo at the end in a second. I will say at the beginning, I really liked it because, look, it's whether they are fighting because they're an army or they're raising foundlings for bounties, like, Mandalorian culture is a warrior culture.
True.
Now, Duchess Satine tried to change that, but they are warriors. All of their weaponry was designed because they were one of the only people that could take down Jedi.
Yep.
Like, that is like, they are a warrior planet of warrior people. So them doing everything that they're doing on the beach, like, that's who they are. Mm-hmm. And I thought, like, Bo kind of walking around and looking at all of them and watching them. And I think, like, there's great acting happening with no face. Like, right. Bo-Katan walking around and just looking and pausing and like turning, like, it really works for me. And, you know, it really looked like, especially as someone who watched Clone Wars and saw her in the camps of Death Watch, walking around while all of Death Watch was doing basically the same thing. Yeah. It really felt like she was walking around being like, all right, well, this kind of feels familiar. This doesn't feel too shabby. I also love, you know, they are definitely like, and again, it's like sort of what Shannon says about what are they trying to tell us as the audience about these characters, whether they're trying to say, hey, don't trust the armorer, or Bo-Katan is out for herself or whatever. Like, it doesn't seem like they are. Like, they have made it, if you watched Boba Fett, they've made it very clear that Din is not great with the Darksaber. Yeah. And they have made it equally clear that Bo-Katan wields that Darksaber like a fucking boss. Yeah. And then here, you've got all these guys being like, we live in a cave and we run out of fuel, so I guess the Raptor took the kid. I don't know what we're going to do. And then Bo-Katan's like, I got a ship, guys. I got this.
Well, this is the frustrating thing I say. You're saying they're a warrior culture. They understand things, blah, blah, blah. But then they're like, we're out of fuel. So which is it? It's confusing to me.
Well, that's just, to Shannon's point, that's just maybe not the best right. I mean, like, all they have to really, they just have to have the armor say, like, we're staying in the harshest environment because no one's going to look for us here. And as Mandalorians, like, it's part of our creed that we're going to, like, make it as hard for it. Like, they could just, in one line, you could have Bo-Katan being like, why are you living next to the water with the crocoturtle? And they could say, because, you know, after what the Empire has done, this is what we need to do to be ready for anything or whatever, and you'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. So it's really like a line of dialogue.
But they're always seeking the tougher challenge, the Mandalorians.
Yeah, so like, and so to Shannon's point, it's not, you don't need an entire 5-minute sequence to break. You could just like, yeah, okay, just say something, and you're like, cool. It's just like they do with the whole "how do I eat" thing. Like, they addressed it really quickly, and you're like, yeah, all right, cool. But again, I just like the fact that Bo-Katan is a badass. And it also is accurate. Like, again, I mean, I keep talking about her history, but she was at the beginning of Death Watch. She went up against Darth Maul. Like, she has done some major things. Like, so it makes sense that she is, of all these warriors, like, she is one of the best. So her going off and doing the thing, her leading the war party, all really, really interesting. I mean, again, I do think that in a show called The Mandalorian, where Din Djarin is supposed to be our Mandalorian, he did kind of take a giant step back here. Yeah. But as far as it being a really great Bo-Katan story, it was. I mean, her leading the war party was really neat. And even the stuff with the food, like, in addition to answering how the Mandalorians eat, it also, watching her sort of be a little bit, well, how do we do this? Like, how am I supposed to do this? Like, you know, you could look at it as she's just trying to bide her time and be part of the crew until she makes her move. Or you can be like, look, homegirl had like a religious experience, is a little bit off her game, isn't sure, and is just like, okay, let's see what's going on here because all of my people are gone. Yeah. And then just watching them all climb the thing, like, I think Shannon is right in the bigger picture of like, well, where is Mandalorian as a show going? And I don't quite know where we're going, but just as a fun Star Wars sequence, a bunch of Mandalorians scaling a mountain to fight a giant monster, and to have this extended action sequence of all of them flying around with their jetpacks to rescue the kid and everything that goes on. And then like the amazing, like Ragnar gets dropped and the swooping down to rescue him. Like it was just a fun, thrilling action sequence, followed by one of those cheesy, stupid Star Wars things that I love. Like, why do they rescue the 3 babies and say, hey, I got 3 more foundlings for you? Yeah, it probably doesn't make a ton of sense. But in Star Wars world, you're like in the Star Wars world of I'm a 5-year-old kid and I want to buy Bo-Katan's ship, and I also want to buy the 3 baby birds and stuff them in the ship and like play that game for like, yeah, I'm in. Like it's silly, but it's Star Wars silly, and I loved it. And then this whole scene between the armorer and Bo-Katan, not surprisingly, saw it totally differently than John did. Like, again, I thought these two were going to be at odds, and you're seeing them kind of come together. And my take on the armorer is the armorer is definitely super tied to her faith, and her faith tells her that the mythosaur is going to rise and a leader is going to take Mandalore, is going to bring Mandalore back. And I don't think the armorer particularly cares if it's her or not. So when Bo-Katan is like, hey, can I get the mythosaur? And she's like, the mythosaur belongs to all of us. You can have the mythosaur. You've got Bo-Katan has like the more modern Mandalorian armor, and now part of it is like more like tied back to her culture.
Right.
And then she kind of opens up and she goes, well, what if, to your point, what if I saw a mythosaur? We all see visions. No, what if I really saw a mythosaur? And I think the armorer just goes, yeah, you know what? If you saw a mythosaur, then the prophecy's coming true. And I think that we're all on the right path. And so this is the way is literally like, yes, this is the way that we are coming back to reclaim Mandalore. Like, I think I don't think that this is turning into Bo-Katan is going to steal the covert away from the armorer.
No, not at all.
I think the armorer is like, yeah, Bo-Katan Kryze, you are part of our covert now, and I think that you might be the one, and you might finally get the thing that you've always wanted. Like, you might be the one that's going to do this on your 3rd try.
That's what I'm getting. You talk about the history of Bo-Katan. Everybody loves Bo-Katan. Such a badass. But you can't ignore that she has a hunger for power. You cannot ignore that she has and she has at times made questionable decisions in order to achieve that power, sometimes shortcuts. So here's a situation where she's homeless, in essence, has no friends around anymore. They've all abandoned her, and she was just sitting around the castle. And then so now the situation pops up, and she has stumbled into a found family, which, of course, Star Wars is always great at creating found families, which is a good thing about Star Wars. And so, like, well, how is this going to come and bear fruit for Bo-Katan down the road? Will she become more of a disciple of the way than Din? And will she, with the armor and the backing of Paz Vizsla, now that she saved his kid, is that going to give her the strength to launch yet another doomed attempt to try to rule Mandalore? I don't know. And it isn't about ego or seeing her as a bad person. She's just driven to want to lead. And that's part of it. And so I wonder if the armor sees that and maybe kind of figuring it out. So you see it as, oh, yes, it might be you, or it could be you. Yes, this is the way. Or it could be like, okay, I see my way back using someone who also has a connection to one of the oldest clans, along with Paz Vizsla, who has a connection to the oldest clan, and using that as legitimizing my desire to run Mandalore, not necessarily as a leader, but certainly being the Dick Cheney to her George W. Bush. So that's very possible to see that situation. I'm just
we could have gone Obama, could have gone Biden, Kamala Harris, but no, we're gonna go Cheney. All right, okay,
possibly evil. I see it as possibly, because I don't trust people who are very hardcore about their faith, religious tenets, not in a negative way. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying you can believe what you want to believe with all your heart. I think that's great. But if you want to lord it over people, I think that's where the danger comes. And I wonder if the armor wants to do that.
I don't know that Bo-Katan ever lorded anything over anybody, though, either. Like, I think that, like,
her
again, getting
rule,
really... Well, she didn't agree with her sister being peaceful, and then they went and started Death Watch, which was bad. Like, not good guys. Death Watch was not the best people. They did some bad shit. Then Death Watch let Darth Maul into Mandalore, and that's where she was like, fuck, we messed up, went and got Ahsoka and said, I need your help to get this asshole off my planet.
Right.
Got the asshole off the planet. And then it gets a little fuzzy. We knew she was going to do some stuff. We catch up in Rebels. The Mandalorians have all sort of reverted back to clans. And she doesn't want to lead. Like, Sabine gets the Darksaber, and Bo-Katan's like, I fucked up. I don't know if I'm the one. And Sabine gives her the Darksaber and says, you are the one, and convinces her. Yeah. And then the Empire comes down hard. Moff Gideon defeats her. We haven't seen all of that. He gets the Darksaber. And then she's just trying to, like, bring Mandalore back. So is she power hungry, or is she really trying to save her people's planet after the one bad thing she really did, which was joining Death Watch?
Yeah. I don't know if I said power hungry, I don't mean power hungry. I mean, she has a desire to lead. That's all I'm leaving.
That is fair. That is true.
Yeah, I'm not putting it negative or positive. She just has a desire to lead. Some people
now,
feel
I will
they're
say,
destined to lead. Yeah.
Just supporting what Shannon said at the top of this, because I do think this was a really fun episode. I had a lot of fun. It hit all the buttons for me as far as like Star Wars nostalgia with the prequels. I love these characters, but we have spent more time talking about Bo-Katan and the Armorer in this spoiler review than we have talking about Din Djarin or even Grogu. And so I think, again, like, I love this because I think Bo-Katan is a great character in the Star Wars universe. But as far as what's happening with Din Djarin's story, Shannon is probably the most right out of the three of us at the top of this spoiler review, saying, we're 4 episodes in, we don't have a ton of episodes. Where are we going this season?
Right. That's a good point, because Shannon, what we thought was he was going to get to how long was it going to take him to get to the waters of Mandalore? What was going to happen? We got that done quickly. We think he might rebel against the armor. Nope, he's pretty much on board and brought a new recruit even. So and so it's an interesting situation. Any final words on this episode, brother?
No, I mean, I do like what we're getting. Yeah, but it's some fun. There are some fun elements with a franchise that I like. If this were not Star Wars, would I be as taken with it? No. Would I have jumped ship yet? Probably not. I want to stick around, and if you give me enough fun stuff, I'm going to stick around to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it just brings me back to episode 1, like the whole thing with IG-11. Like, I'm assuming they wouldn't just throw that in, not to go back to it, but. Again, the narratively, I will always struggle with the Mando Grogu reunion in Boba Fett, and thus far, like I'm being proven right thus far. Like the last half of the season, it could be amazing. Be like, nope, I was wrong. They knew what they were doing. But as of right now, that's not my opinion.
Fair enough. All right. Well, there you go. That's our spoiler review for The Mandalorian. We appreciate it madly, all of you joining us here. Chapter 20, The Foundling of Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yes, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, not being a cult, @MKDune. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, you're talking about cults, it's @The Says.
Yeah, maybe I've seen too many of these cult documentaries in the pandemic. Michael, what do we have to tell them?
Look, if you like listening to me and Shannon's well-reasoned arguments about what's happening in the show, or John Rocha's wild theories, we've got it all for you right here on the Geek Buddies. And here's what you can do to keep helping us do what we do. Definitely hit that like button below. Subscribe to John's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. What do you think? Is the Armorer no good? Is this a cult waiting to like spring their trap? Is Bo-Katan power hungry? Is she really having a religious experience? What's going on with Din Djarin? What's going on with Grogu? What do we think is going to happen in the back half of this season? Let us know what you think about all of this below. If you are listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some comments, leave us some stars, help us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And I do want to make it very clear, I'm a massive fan of the Mandalorian culture and the Mandalorians. I just have my questions. I mean, they were my big entryway into Star Wars. As I've said multiple times, I think they were the Latinos of Star Wars. All right, anyway, let's get on out of here. Thank you all so much for joining us here for this, and we'll talk to you next. Oh, don't forget, our main show already is out there for you all to enjoy, and our Picard show review is coming up tomorrow if you're watching this on Thursday, but look for that on Friday.
What a time to be a geek.
It's true. It's a lot happening. So, all right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek
Buddies.